back. Welcome on in to this edition of Tuesday, March 19th, 2024's Sean on Sports here live from the Iowa Memorial Union here at the University of Iowa in Iowa City, Iowa. It is so good to be back. We have taken a 2-week hiatus here, but we're finally back. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about. It was kind of nice to get a break, not gonna lie, because we've talked about this before here on the show, that we've kind of been in a weird lull when it comes to sports things. There's not, really a lot going on because hockey's in the middle of the season and you're not close enough to the playoffs yet. Same with the NBA. You're in the middle of the season. There's nothing close to the playoffs yet that we're watching. Baseball hasn't started yet. Basketball was finishing up, or college basketball, excuse me, was finishing up the conference tournaments. The MLS has just barely gotten started. So we were in this weird lull, and it was nice to have the break to kind of let some of these sports news and things accumulate, let some things play out. I know NFL free agency has been going just ballistic, insane for these past, 2-3 weeks or so here. And so it was kind of nice to be able to let all of those deals and transactions accrue so we can talk about them. Today, though, we're not going to be talking about the NFL free agency, although rest assured in probably another week or two, we are going to start talking about the absolute craziness that was this past NFL free agency cycle, or I guess it's still open, but I mean, all of the biggest deals have really been made up to this point. So we're going to give it another week or two, and then we're going to talk about that fully in depth because I really want to go into what I think is probably the weirdest and wildest free agency we've had in a very long time. And I think that it is definitely going to change the competitiveness of the NFL next year. And I think all of these moves can really be boiled down to all of these teams that are missing 1 to 2 pieces or, may need some strength in some areas. They're making the biggest moves possible for these because everyone is trying to keep the Chiefs from three-peating. That's my brief description of how free agency has gone. Basically, stocking up enough weapons to keep the Chiefs from three-peating. So, like I said, that's the NFL free agency. That's my little take on that. We'll go into it probably within the next week or two. We'll figure something out. Hopefully, we can get some other people here on the show so that we can talk about these moves. Maybe get some fans of these teams in here and have a good time with it. So. Moving on again, I know I promised before we went off the air for these 2 weeks that we were going to somewhat go back to normalcy, go back to our scripted stuff. I decided that we're actually not going to go back onto the format, at least not for this week. And pardon me, part of that is partially because we've had this big long break here and we've got some, different stories that have more weight to the other ones. There's also just, again, kind of the lull in the sports right now. It's that February, mid-March kind of lull. But I have a personal experience that I'd like to talk about today, just to briefly start the show, excuse me. And then we're going to talk bracketology for men's and women's. The brackets officially came down on Sunday. Everyone's starting to fill them out, and we're getting ready to go into the best time of year for college basketball, the March Madness season. I'm super excited for it, and I'm so ready to talk about men's and women's because believe me, I have got some thoughts for both, and then I will be sharing my completely accurate, 100% correct first perfect bracket in the history of the world. Perfect bracket for men's and women's that has absolutely no problems and will be completely right all the way through later on today. But I want to start and dive in with a fun personal experience, fun story that I had over this past spring break. So, as a lot of you guys who have listened before on the show know, hockey is not my biggest sport. Of the big 4 sports, or even big 5 sports, if you want to count the MLS and or soccer, it's probably the lowest on there. And it's not that I dislike hockey. I do not dislike hockey one bit, but I find it very hard to watch on TV when it's not the playoffs. I find, it's too fast, and the way that hockey is shot on TV, it's really choppy. So it's just like quick, and stuff is moving and you can't see anything, and it's just this blaze and this bundle of people skating up and down, and the camera work can't catch everything. And in the moment, it's really hard to see when stuff happens, so you're always relying on replay. And so I always have a very hard time watching hockey on TV. It's been very hard for me to get into. I don't come from a place where there's a very strong hockey culture per se, or like youth hockey culture, because I'm originally from Central Missouri. We have, of course, the Blues in St. Louis, but as far as us having a minor league team, or a skating culture or a playing culture, that's not really around. There was no rink in my hometown, and there was only one rink within a 100-mile radius of us, and that was down south in Jefferson City. There was one rink, and everybody was there all the time. So I never had opportunities to be able to play youth hockey or to be able to skate very much. We didn't go to Blues games as a kid, although I really wish we did. We went, we were more of a baseball family, so we went to Cardinals games instead. So I have not grown up with hockey being the biggest sport in my life, or taking all of my attention, if you will. That hasn't been my thing. But I've always had a genuine respect for hockey. I think hockey is one of the most difficult sports to play, because on top of playing a game with a stick where you have to be coordinated, and you have to have good eyes, and you have to watch, and you have to be able to dance with the stick. You also are skating. You also have to be completely precise with all your movements. So on top of thinking about how you're going to move the puck, move your stick, do this and that to try and keep your opponent from getting it, try to get a shot on goal. Now you have to think about keeping yourself balanced. Now you have to think about, trying to gain speed. Now you have to think about starting and stopping on the ice on a dime, on a material that is literally meant to keep you from starting and stopping on a dime. That is what I respect. And you also have to be able to take a hit, or you have to be able to take a shot, and you have to take a big hits. Or sometimes, you get a hockey puck shot into your ribs, or you get a hockey puck shot into your leg. Those things hurt. Hockey pucks hurt. So I have the utmost respect for hockey players. I just had never gotten into it. And before this, I had been to a couple minor league hockey games. And minor league hockey games, those are really fun, because with minor league hockey, those are the players who are going all out. They want to be promoted, they want to be noticed, they want to be seen. These are the high scoring, high flying, big time fighting, big smash mouth kind of hockey games. Whereas in the NHL, those guys have already made it. They don't have to necessarily show off and show out as much as they do, because they're already on contract, and they're just there more to win the games instead of putting on a show or thinking about for themselves, or at least one would hope. You would think, one would hope that they would think like that. But minor league hockey is an incredible experience. I've been to a couple minor league hockey games, like I've said, and I really enjoyed watching it. I think watching hockey live is such a complete difference from watching hockey in person, or on TV, excuse me. Like, it is not even close, the difference in experience you get. Because with football and baseball and basketball, when you watch those on TV, the experience is obviously different going to see it live, but you're not missing anything really. You're not picking up something new when you're there versus when you're on TV, or the crowd isn't quite the same. But with hockey, it is such a different atmosphere in person. You pick up so many things. You get to see the rink, the arena, whatever you call it, the ice, as a whole, instead of in choppy sections like on TV. And you just the intensity, you feel the intensity that you can't get quite through a TV. You feel it, and the fans are so intense. And so I love watching hockey in person. And all of this to say, over spring break, I went to visit a friend who lives in Montreal, and he took myself and another one of his friends to the game that was happening there, the Montreal Canadiens versus the Boston Bruins. And for those not in hockey or not in the hockey culture, the Canadiens Bruins rivalry is the greatest rivalry in all of hockey. It is the most intense. There is a ton of history between these two teams. It's an original six matchup, which again, for hockey fans, that's a big deal. It has an extra bit of weight to it. For non-hockey fans, original six refers, of course, to the original six founding teams of the National Hockey League. Those, of course, being the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Montreal Canadiens, the Detroit Red Wings, the New York Islanders, the Chicago Blackhawks, and the Boston Bruins. Those are the original six. Those are like sacred teams, if you will, to the NHL hockey pantheon. So it's the Montreal Canadiens, it's the Boston Bruins. It's an original six game. It's in Montreal. Montreal, the original team, of course, the the number one, also the most successful of all the NHL teams, with 23 Stanley Cups. I believe that is twice as many as the team with the next most cups. These guys are like the New York Yankees of NHL. They are an incredibly storied and historic franchise. Now, the Canadiens, however, have not done well in recent past, shall we say. And by recent past, I mean it's been 31 seasons since they last won a cup. Pardon me. And they are also the last Canadian team to win a cup. A Canadian team has not won a cup since the 92-93 season. It has been a long time. But the Canadiens also host the largest hockey-only, like single-use hockey-only arena in the world. Centerville Arena, Bell Center, it changes between whichever one it is. Has a capacity of 21,000 fans in downtown Montreal. It is, it's like a tower, and then the arena is underneath it. And it is just a beyond unbelievable atmosphere. So we got to witness the game there. The Canadiens are not a good team this year. They're really not. They're currently sitting at seventh in the Atlantic Division as of my doing this show this morning. Their most recent loss has been to Calgary. They lost like 5 or 6-2. It was really not a good matchup. They've really had kind of a midseason. Unfortunately, their head coach Martin St. Louis has had to take time off due to family and personal matters. We wish him all the best, and we wish him well in those, and that he can get those resolved and take the time that he needs so that he can come back. But Montreal has just really not had the greatest of seasons. They come into this game against the Bruins, and my friend and his friend and I, we are sitting at the very top of the arena. The nosebleeds of seats. We are sitting at the very back, backs up against the wall, the top wall. We are in section, I want to say 400 of the arena. We are all the way up there. But the way it's structured, you still get a good view. It's not like with NBA games or with MLB games where you're really stretching to actually kind of maybe see stuff. No. The view was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. We got to see both ends of the ice clearly. There was no obstruction from anything. These seats were awesome. And you wouldn't think that. But we were sitting, unfortunately, because when it comes to games like this, Boston fans travel. Canadians have an incredibly passionate fan base, huge fan base. They're the original one, but Boston fans, of course, Boston's Boston. The Bruins are Bruins. They have a big traveling fan base that comes up to Montreal, and it doesn't help that this was spring break for a lot of them. So in front of us was a bunch of Boston fans who were on spring break. And beside us were a bunch of Boston fans who were on spring break. Very loud, exuberant Boston fans. And we will be right back right after this. So sorry to cut short. Moving on back to the story. So yes, we're sitting at the very top of the arena. We're surrounded by Boston fans. And the whole time it's just a chant between "Let's go Bruins" and Go Habs Go, which the Canadians' nickname is the Habs. And the game itself, for an incredible atmosphere on a Thursday night at 8 p.m. that was completely sold out, by the way, it honestly was not the best hockey game in terms of the quality played. The Bruins had been on a losing, or not a losing streak, but they had lost quite a few of their previous few games. They were in somewhat of a slide. The Canadians, of course, they're seventh in the Atlantic Division. So it really was not a good game. The Bruins, they scored first. They scored within 5 minutes off of a rebound goal. It was pretty good. But the Canadians fought back, and they got another goal by the end of the first period, so it was 1-1 after the first period, and we're like, all right, because it was really starting to ramp up. The fans were starting to get into it, the players were starting to get into it. It was getting really intense, and then the game just fizzled out. It was just there were some power plays here and there. Boston got quite a few power plays, and they were killed by Montreal. Montreal got a couple power plays and had just the most atrocious power play offense I think I've ever seen. And I don't watch hockey a lot. Like I've said, I don't, know exactly what is good or bad. But watching this live, and watching their power play offense, they couldn't even get it out of the neutral zone into Boston zone on a power play with a man advantage. It was not very good to see. And then the third period was just chaos of like, please, somebody score. There were chances for both sides. Montreal was really getting into Boston's back line. I really thought they were going to pull off a game winner there. Boston did get a penalty, or no, excuse me. Montreal got a penalty, and Boston had a over 4 minute power play, which I really thought they were going to score on, and somehow no dice. And at the end of 3 periods of really somewhat middling hockey play, we go to overtime, and I'm like, oh yes, overtime. This is going to be so good. This is going to be really fun. And maybe they get to a shootout, because in hockey overtime, when it gets to overtime, 3-on-3, sudden death. And then there's, I can't remember if there's a running clock. I believe there's a running clock, but 3-on-3, sudden death. And so you have to be strategic about how you do this, because you don't want to get caught out of place. Montreal wins the faceoff. They immediately take it up. They immediately get the puck stripped from them, and they have overcommitted, and it's a 3-on-1 all the way down for Boston. Boston puts it in the net, scores, game over, 15 seconds into overtime. And I gotta say, it was a pretty anticlimactic, disappointing ending there to a game. The Bruins win 2-1. The Boston fans all around us were going absolutely insane, which really did not help the mood. But I absolutely loved it. I thought, even though the play was maybe not the greatest, the experience and the atmosphere of being able to watch an NHL game in Canada with the Canadian atmosphere, because people in Montreal don't have any other major sport. Well, okay, CF Montreal for the MLS, but like, come on, don't have any other major sports teams that their allegiances are divided to or anything like that, especially now that the Expos have left within the last 20 years. So this is the team, and they are so committed. The intensity is unreal from these fans. And to have my first NHL game be an Original Six game, have it be in Canada, in the biggest hockey environment arena in the world, that was an absolute treat. I was so grateful. I was so thankful. I want to be able to do it again. I love watching hockey in Montreal. I mean, if I ever moved there, I would try my hardest to get season tickets to go to the Bell Center to watch Montreal play games. It is that good of an atmosphere, and to see it in Canada too, I think just even heightened it. So I have to say that NHL experience in Canada was a 10 out of 10. If you're ever interested in going to see hockey, obviously the US has all the teams, but if you're in Canada, it doesn't even matter where in Canada. It could be an Ottawa Senators game versus Winnipeg Jets game in Winnipeg. Go watch hockey in Canada and experience it for yourself. It is that good. So, after that little personal anecdote, I want to get now into some bracketology for both the men's and the women's. I want to get into this. And for the men's, I think we have got a really, really curious bracket on because I think that, UConn, especially at the end of the season, has really showed out. I mean, UConn has been a good team. They've been looking like a defending national championship team. But other than that, the usual suspects of the tournament, of the conferences, really have not looked quite like themselves. I feel like this is a very wide open tournament because Duke has not looked themselves. North Carolina has not looked themselves. Kansas has just fallen off a cliff. Houston has been incredibly shaky. Purdue, and just small rant about Purdue here. I understand that Zach Edey is a good player, and I understand that they are a well-coached program. But Purdue, in my opinion, has to be one of the most fraudulent, like top three teams ever. And they've been doing that for the past 3 years. And they take advantage of the fact that Big Ten men's is pretty much a joke outside of Illinois and occasionally Michigan State. But they are just, and they keep getting beat by these teams that they shouldn't be, and their play is unimpressive. They don't make a lot of headlines. They just take advantage of a weak conference. And I cannot believe that they ended up being a one seed. Now, to be fair, who else were they going to give it to? But they are the most fraudulent one seed. This is like 3 years running on this. I have zero faith in Purdue. None. And if they end up going far in the tournament, we will do a Purdue segment on this show. I say it right here, right now, March 19th, 2024, 8:23 a.m. Central Standard Time. If Purdue goes far in the tournament, if they make it to a Final Four, if they show that they're actually worth this, we will do a Purdue apology show. I promise that now. We will do the Purdue apology show. Anyway, for the men's, though, I mean, it is wide open, and there are some teams in here that I really think could make a noise, especially some of these middle seeds. I like how some of these middle seeds are looking quite a bit. And I'm really hoping we can get a Final Four like we did last year, because last year's Final Four was an absolute breath of fresh air, minus UConn, but San Diego State, FAU, Miami, and UConn. That is a good Final Four. I think that's what people want to see. I think people are, just sick of the usual UConns, North Carolinas, Dukes, Kentuckys, Kansas, Gonzaga, the usual suspects. And I think this tournament offers yet another opportunity to do so. So for my bracket here, some notable matchups in the first round that I want to talk about, or that I want to just highlight. I think that for all of the number one seeds, all of the number one seeds should be fine. Although I have a friend, a longtime friend, collaborator on some of the production side of Sean on Sports. He goes to college at Kennesaw State down in Georgia, part of the ASUN conference. And UConn plays the Stetson Hatters. Their mascot is the Hats because it's named after the brand of hats. Also, the college that Jacob deGrom went to. Really random fun fact. But I have personally just kind of wanted to see Stetson beat UConn just to have a really funny 16-1 upset and have a team that is the Hatters make it farther in the tournament. So that is the one I'm personally rooting for. But I don't think any of the one seeds are going to succumb to the 16 seed. Notable matchups in the East that I like. I think UAB is going to upset San Diego State, and I know San Diego State had a good season last season, but the Blazers just came off of an AAC tournament win. They came off beating a very good USF team, and I think that they have it in them to beat San Diego State. I don't know. I'm looking at this game and I'm looking at the matchup with San Diego State, and I really like UAB's chances for a potential upset there. Oh, and then another one that I've got in the east side of the bracket here is Morehead State over Illinois. I think that Illinois, again, like Purdue, is a very well coached program. They have very solid players, but they take advantage of a relatively weak Big Ten men's conference. And I think that my pick for an upset will be Morehead State. I think Morehead State is going to shock the basketball world and they're going to beat Illinois because I really do think Illinois is a fraudulent team. I don't, every year they come in hyped and every year they can't get the job done. I don't see why this year isn't any different. And so that is my upset in the East. While also I've got Drake beating Washington State too. I think Drake is a very good basketball team, this season. They, of course, beat Indiana State to punch their ticket to the tournament. I like their chances. I like them as a team. I was watching them play against Indiana State. They have very good size all around. They are a well balanced size team. They're on the taller side, but they are very well balanced. And I like the way that they could match up against really any team within the east side of the bracket because they will at the very least have the physicality to be able to keep with a lot of these teams. Moving over to the south, my big upset, my big game to look at here is going to be James Madison versus Wisconsin. And Wisconsin, again, good, they're a good team, well coached team, not trying to take away from them at all. But again, fraudulent team in the fact that they don't have a strong conference that they play in. I think that James Madison will get an upset over Wisconsin. I think that they will expose Wisconsin. I don't think the matchup is very good for Wisconsin either. And that is a game I will be watching. I think of all of my upset games, quote unquote, I want to really pay attention to James Madison, Wisconsin, because I think James Madison will have Wisconsin beat in this one. I really do. And then want to do a quick shout out. So Duke is going to be playing Vermont, the University of Vermont, UVM. And I know that we're here in the Midwest, and I'm from the Midwest, so there's not a lot of, East Coast stuff here. But while I was at that Canadiens Bruins game in Montreal, some guy had full on decked out Vermont Catamounts gear, hat, hockey jersey, because Vermont is one of the D1 teams that has a hockey team there. Catamounts pants, full green. I thought that was really funny to see because I've never seen that before. And Vermont is really, honestly, not a well known state university. And I just wanted to give a shout out to the Vermont Catamounts for that. But I think that they're going to lose to Duke. Nothing about their team. It's just, giving them the shout out. And then when we come back right after this short message, I want to give my thoughts on the 7-10 matchup between Florida and either Boise State or Colorado State. I'm looking at this matchup very closely, and we will be right back after this short message. Anyway, we are back. So I'm talking about in the South, we're talking about the Florida versus Boise State or Colorado State matchup. Florida, to me, did they win the SEC tournament? They might have won the SEC tournament here. Hold on. Yeah, no, they lost in the SEC tournament. They lost to Auburn. That's right. I knew they made it to the final. Anyway, they they're they're an all right team, but I really don't think they should be there. And I think Boise State, I would think that Boise State or Colorado State, either one could pull out. Personally, I'd like to see Boise State. I've got a friend who goes to Boise State. Um, I think that either one of them will beat Florida. Colorado State has been, within the last few years, a tournament team. They're a very well coached team, and they have been fighting through a very difficult Pac 12. And Boise State has made their way through the Mountain West, and they haven't. I mean, they didn't win, but they were a solid second. They've been a solid team throughout points in this year. I like either one of their chances over Florida. I just don't think that Florida can get it done. I think their run was a bit of a fluke in the SEC tournament, and so that is another one that I think I'll be watching in the South. Moving on over to the West, nothing Nothing surprising out of this one. I think that, or at least to start, I think that New Mexico is probably going to beat Clemson. This New Mexico team is a very good team. They have been on the rise for a few years now. Clemson is, they're kind of a sleeper team. They have made it through a good ACC, but obviously they didn't win in the tournament. That goes to North Carolina State. But I think New Mexico will upset Clemson. I like the matchup with New Mexico. I think they've got something to play for. I think they've got something to prove. And I like where they are at. And then this is probably what I would consider one of two of my biggest upsets here. So Arizona will be playing Long Beach State on the 21st at 1 p.m. Long Beach State they won their conference tournament. I don't remember what conference it is, but they won their conference tournament. And before that, though, they had agreed to part ways with their head coach. Couldn't remember if it was at the end of the regular season or if once they started winning, it was going to be after the season. Well, anyway, Long Beach State goes on to win their tournament, and their coach is still around. And I think that with them winning the tournament and them getting this momentum and wanting to play for their coach, who obviously will not be around anymore, I like what they could bring to the table against Arizona. I think that they could be completely, they could get completely destroyed by Arizona. Arizona is a very big physical team who shoots very well. But I think that could be the magic one. That could be the magic game because Arizona has looked incredibly shaky at points in this season. There have been times where they have been dominant. They have looked good. They have looked like the team we have come to expect over the past few years with Arizona basketball. And then there are times where they have just fallen apart. They've completely shut down. They have lost to some weird teams. They've taken some very close games. And I don't know if I trust Arizona. I really do not know if I can trust Arizona with this. And I think Long Beach State, that is the one that will be the marquee upset of the tournament is over Long Beach State over Arizona. That is again, I'm probably eating my words. Maybe they get blown out, but that is my upset in the West. And that is one of my two big upsets for the tournament because my other upset comes out of the Midwest region. And in the Midwest region, so I first want to get this out of the way. So St. Peter's, the Peacocks from 2 years ago, their incredible, magical run. St. Peter's is back. They are a 15 seed. They're playing 2-seeded Tennessee. And out of just a little vanity pick and for fun, I think that they beat Tennessee. Maybe they get the magic, but they don't go far into the next round. Who knows? You can never know with these things, but I picked that as like a joke upset. My real upset, though, is Akron beating Creighton. Now, Creighton is a very good team. I know I've said this about a lot of the teams, and I have actually had the chance to watch Creighton a couple times. I think that Creighton runs an incredibly efficient offense with some really good shooters. They have size down low. They have very tall, athletic guards as well. Baylor Shireman coming out of the wing, the transfer from South Dakota State from 2 years ago, is a very tall but shooting specialist guard who can get down low. The offense doesn't run through him, but he's a very good off-ball guard. They run, like I said, they run incredibly efficiently. They run pace. They have a very good defense down low as well. Watching Creighton is a very balanced team. They're an incredibly balanced team. But I have seen Akron, and I have seen what they have done within their conference. The Akron Zips, which is just a fantastic mascot, by the way. Akron to me, that is my big chip on the shoulder, bigger than Long Beach State. I think Akron is going to prove something, and I think they are going to come out with the hugest upset, not named Arizona Long Beach State, out of all of this. They are going to upset Creighton. I have this feeling that they are going to find a way to be able to disrupt the efficiency of Creighton's offense. They're going to be able to stifle the shooting guards, force them to come down low, almost playing like a park the bus kind of defense at the line and forcing them to go inside. I think that's what Akron will do, and I think that they can be really effective at that. And so I pick Akron as my big time winner for for the upset of the tournament award, not named Arizona and Long Beach State. And then skipping ahead just to my final four here, I have a path. This is, when I say these, it's going to sound random. I have a path. We unfortunately don't have time to go through all of it. And as the weeks come on, in the next few shows, we're going to continue to update on the March Madness, talk about what all's going on with that. But my final four, I've got Iowa State. I think Iowa State is an incredibly solid basketball team who has made their way through the Big 12. And, I don't hate cheering for the rivals, but I really like where Iowa State is at. And I think that they have the tools to go far. I think they are an efficiently balanced team. They're very well coached and they have talent to take them all the way. I like Iowa State. So I have Iowa State. I have Texas. I think Texas is a sleeper team. Texas is a very good team, again, within that Big 12. They have taken down some giants within the Big 12. They're also a very balanced team. I like the way that they look. Then I have Marquette. Marquette has been a very good team for multiple years now, and they're looking to get over the hump. The past few years, they've been unable to get over the hump. I think this is the year that they get over the hump. And then finally, St. Mary's. I have St. Mary's. I think I don't know. There's something to me that in the West, I think St. Mary's can win out the West and make an almost like San Diego State was last year. I think St. Mary's is my San Diego State of last year. But I have St. Mary's versus Marquette in the final. Marquette is your new national champion. I have 134 points being scored. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. But, you heard it here first. That is the correct, that is the perfect, that is the flawless Final Four and championship prediction. But we will see how it goes. But I think it is going to be a Marquette and a St. Mary's matchup. Like I said, I wish I had more time to explain my logic and my reasoning behind that. I want to get into the women's bracket here now. But we will be following it. We will be following it. I'm so excited we're in this season. This is one of the best seasons for all sports fans, and I'm ready to go. I'm so excited. So moving over to the women's tournament challenge here. The women's, excuse me, sorry, I'm just getting the bracket pulled up here, and ESPN is trying to tell me to pick South Carolina as my winner. That's absolutely not happening. Thank you. I think the first thing we got to talk about here is the Albany Regional 2. This has been in the sporting news for women's basketball quite a bit. This is a murderer's row of exceptional women's basketball teams that are going to have to fight their way through to try and make it to the Final Four. There are some really, really good teams in here. This is in soccer terms, this would be the group of death. We've got Iowa, Princeton, and West Virginia, Colorado. Drake is no slouch either. Kansas State, Louisville, LSU, big one. Creighton and UNLV and UCLA. All of these are exceptional teams, absolutely exceptional teams within this region here. And I think to just start out with the regional 2, and I want to just talk about what my matchups for this are going to be and how I think this is going to go down. Iowa, I'm pretty sure will take care of business in the very first game. I'm going to be there at Carver on Saturday. It's going to be an incredible atmosphere. I'm absolutely excited to see it. I can't wait to see what celebrities show up for this game as we just continue the wonderful trend that has been happening this season for women's college basketball, just showing up, showing out, supporting our team. I will be there. So I think Iowa will take care of business against either Holy Cross or UT Martin. I'm not concerned about that game. West Virginia and Princeton, these are, this is what you want out of the 8-9 seed. Two relatively even teams in terms of talent, what they can bring to the table. But I like Princeton. I like Princeton in this one. Princeton has that guard whose name I believe is also Caitlin. I think it's like Caitlin Chen or something like that. I will have to look it up, and I apologize if I missaid any names there. But I like Princeton's chances here. I think Princeton will pull out over West Virginia. We've got the next game is Colorado versus Drake. Drake is a very good team, but I think they will be overmatched. Colorado is a good team. I am surprised that they did not do as well as I thought they would have, especially in that performance that they put up against LSU to begin the year on national television to beat number one LSU, to hand them a pretty convincing loss as well. Colorado, I have watched a couple of their games. That girl, Frida Foreman, can shoot. She is an excellent guard. Excellent. Great speed, great three-point shooting, excellent defense. Her ball handling is very good. I mean, obviously we are not talking at the Caitlin Clark level, but she is a force. And then they have a girl down low. It's number 0. I don't remember a name. She is a big post presence. She's very similar to Ashley Owusu for Penn State. A very good physical post presence who can also just pull up and shoot from nowhere. Just pull up and shoot and absolutely nail them. Colorado has a well balanced attack. They're a very well coached team. I think that Colorado is one of the best coached teams in the entire nation, and I think that they are an absolute threat in this division. But I think they will beat Drake handily. Kansas State against Portland. Kansas State, of course, beat Iowa at the beginning of the year, then lost to Iowa later. They have mostly maintained form. They're a very good team as well. Aoka Lee is continuing to have an incredible season and an incredible career at Kansas State. Kansas State has a very efficient defense. They, of course, were able to lock down the very first time, or Iowa down the very first time that they played. Iowa had almost no answers for that defense. I think that they will smother Portland and take care of them relatively easily. Louisville, I think, is going to beat MTSU. I don't think that that's going to be a problem whatsoever. Louisville, even though they lost Haley Van Lith, are continuing to be a good team. And then LSU versus Rice for the next one. LSU, I think, will beat Rice. I don't think there's going to be any issues there, especially because they were able to maintain all of their players post scuffle from the South Carolina game in the SEC championship. I think that they're in a pretty good spot, and I think they'll beat Rice. And then I think UNLV will upset Creighton. I like how UNLV looks. They have won 30 games on the year. They're no slouch. They have won 30 games on the year in a relatively middling but still very good Mountain West Conference. And we will be right back after this short message. We're going to continue with our women's bracketology. My bad there. I apologize. I've really got to get better at knowing when my time is coming so I can segue into those a little bit better and I don't have to rush and stop real quick. Anyway, UNLV 30-win team. I think they're going to take care of Creighton. And I think that they're definitely a force for this side of the bracket. And then I think UCLA will pretty easily beat California Baptist. Continuing in the Albany too, though, I just want to focus on this region for a little bit and what I'm looking at. Iowa will play Princeton, and this game, provided Iowa wins their first matchup, will be in Iowa City. It will be a home game. It'll be another 15,000 plus fans. I don't think it'll be much of an issue. Princeton will bring something to the table. I don't think that this is going to be as big of a loss as whatever the Holy Cross UT Martin game is going to end up being. I think Princeton's really going to put up a fight. I think Princeton's Caitlin is going to try to match Caitlin Clark 1-for-1, but I think Iowa's experience and skill will overwhelm them on the 1-to-1s there, and I don't think that there'll be much of a problem. But the matchup that I like for this one, this is the matchup that I am the most anxious to see so far. And I want the Colorado Kansas State one. These are two Very good teams. If we have an S tier of women's college basketball games or excuse me, teams, shall we say, and we put in there like South Carolina and LSU and Iowa and USC, and those are like the most upper echelon. Sitting at the top of A tier, waiting for their turn to come in, is Colorado and Kansas State. I like this matchup a lot. I I am really hoping that no upsets happen so that we can see this game. This is going to be a tight game. This will be a contested game. This will be a game between, who is the program that is going to make a bigger statement, because either way this game could go. I think that the program will make a statement to say we have grappled with the higher competition. We are ready and we are looking at that S tier competition. We want more. We are hungry. And it is a 50-50 to me out of who could take this game. I am confident that, or not confident, but I think that it will be Colorado who pulls it out, mostly on the basis of their 3-point shooting over Kansas State's defense. I think Frida Foreman will have a very good game, and they will pull out in the end. But I think this will be one of the closer, more exciting matchups of the entire tournament. Next, we've got another good matchup here between Louisville and LSU. I think LSU is going to look shaky. I think that they are. I think Louisville is going to expose some flaws in their game, but I do think LSU is going to win this game. I don't think LSU is going to quite taper off just yet. And then finally, UCLA will probably beat UNLV. UNLV will be good to get past Creighton, but I think UCLA, they have been grappling with USC in a very contested Pac 12 all year, as they have to compete with Stanford and USC, like I said. And so I think that they will come out over UNLV. I don't think that'll be much of a problem. Moving into Sweet 16 games here. Iowa versus Colorado. We have a rematch of what I believe was also the Sweet 16 last year between Iowa and Colorado, and I think that Colorado gave them a run for their money. That was a big coming out party for Colorado last year. Was the run that they gave Iowa. Of all of the games last year for Iowa, the most concerned I was at any point, except of course for losing the national title, but was against Colorado. I really like them because they are very similar to Iowa. They run things very similar personnel wise. They're very similar. I I think even defensively they may even be tighter or better than Iowa. But I think that it'll be a neutral site in Albany. There's going to be a lot of Iowa fans there. It's basically going to be a home game for Iowa. Iowa's going to continue the momentum. I think it'll be a good game, but I think Iowa will prevail over Colorado to win that Sweet 16 matchup. And then I think that LSU and UCLA will have a fight for the ages, but UCLA is going to expose the weaknesses that LSU has had all year. All year, I know we have seen hints and flashes of it that they are not nearly as good or a cohesive team as they were this year, despite all the transfers that they have got. I think that UCLA will end LSU's title repeat hopes in a game that will show that LSU may have just been a good team, but not a great team, not a dynastic team. And then to move into the regional champion for this, I think we have Iowa versus UCLA. That's going to be an incredible game, but I think Iowa will win that one. That's how I look at the rest of that Albany region, because gosh, it's a tough one. Either way, a lot of these games play out, especially as we get into the second round. We're going to be seeing really good games. It will not matter who ends up winning them because they will be good teams or good games between good teams all around. It is a tight one. I don't know if I have ever seen a women's region this tight before. And Iowa's been dealt a hand. They really have been. They have been dealt a hand, and they're going to have to put on their best basketball. I think, we are playing at a level that is perfect momentum wise going into this tournament. There's no drawbacks to Iowa. I think this is still Iowa's region to lose, but any of the doubters I think will be silenced if Iowa can win this out. Like for literally anyone who for whatever reason still thinks Iowa and Caitlin Clark are not it, this is where we prove it and we say we belong. We did it once last year. We're going to do it again. Final Four berth again. We are going to win this regional. So I have Iowa winning this regional. Not even as an Iowa fan. As an Iowa fan, of course, I have them winning my national championship. I just want to put that out there right now. Iowa is going to win this national championship. It can't like they cannot not win this championship. But I think even as a non-Iowa fan, looking at what Iowa's done, the competition that Iowa has played, especially in an incredibly competitive Big Ten women's conference with 7 teams from the Big Ten making it into the tournament this year. I think that they are battle tested, they are battle ready, they are battle scary. This is theirs to lose. I like this a lot, and I think that they're going to come out of it stronger, looking for a Final Four. In the rest of the other regions, there's nothing crazy that I would say. I think that Nebraska is going to have a good tournament run. Nebraska is a very good team. We all know this. Jazz Shelley is an incredible player. She's an incredible shooter. I think we're going to have an Elite Eight matchup between South Carolina and Nebraska. I think that will be an extremely fun game to watch. I think South Carolina will win that game, but Nebraska will give them a run for their money, and I think Nebraska will continue moving into the upper echelons of not just the Big Ten, but women's college basketball in general. I think that another one, a lot of people are wanting a USC Iowa Final Four matchup because they want to push this Juju Watkins is the next Caitlin Clark um, narrative here. But I don't think it's going to quite go down like that because if in the regional three and the Portland three, if everything goes right or if teams win the way they should win, we're going to get a Sweet 16 matchup between USC and Virginia Tech. And Virginia Tech made it to the Elite Eight last year. They are still a very good team. And I think Virginia Tech is going to end USC's run to the Final Four. I think they have the experience over USC, and I think that they will be able to stop Juju Watkins and kind of stifle any of those narratives there. And I think Virginia Tech will also beat Ohio State within that region. So my Final Four is South Carolina. I have Utah winning out in Regional Four. I like the matchups that Utah can get in there, and I think that they are a sleeper pick for the Final Four. And then on the other side, Iowa and Virginia Tech. Obviously, South Carolina and Iowa for the national championship. Your 2 number 1 seeds, your top 1 seeds going at it for a rematch of the Final Four game last year, the incredible Final Four game last year. And I think that once again, Iowa will end a perfect South Carolina season. Caitlin Clark will finally get to show out on the national stage in the national championship game. She will go out with a championship and be one of the greatest, probably if she wins this tournament, the greatest women's college basketball player of all time, finishing on top as she should, deservedly so, in Cleveland on April 7th. And I have my combined score at 176. Iowa has shown no signs of slowing down with their high-flying offense of over, I think, like 92 or 3 points a game. They even kept that up in the Big Ten tournament, their average. And so South Carolina, I think, will be forced to match them. I think that it will be slightly less defensive than it was last year, especially with the absence of Aaliyah Boston in the down low and Monica Sonano and McKenna Warnock for Iowa. I think it will be slightly less defensive. South Carolina this year is definitely more offense oriented because Camila Cardoso, despite the fact that she is 6'7", I mean, she is a threat down low. She is more of an offensive kind of give you 15 points a game kind of forward down there. So I've got 176 as the combined points right there. I think we're really going to see a shootout for that. But all of that being said, those are my national championship picks. Those are my bracketology previews for both the men's and the women's tournament. For the men's, I think that it's wide open. And for the women's, I think it's tight. I think we know a lot of good women's teams are going to fall in this tournament. And I think that those who have shown they can be the best on previous occasions are going to continue to come out to be the best and still say that they are the best um, in this tournament. I'm really excited for the women's. I think this is going to be the most competitive women's tournament we have seen in a very long time. A very long time. I am really excited for both. The games kick off here within the next couple of days. We're going to be following it here on Sean on Sports, and we are going to probably do another few bracket specials here within the next few weeks as we just continue to watch the games happen. So, best of luck to everyone with your brackets. Hopefully you do well. Hopefully you win your pool. Hopefully they are as flawless and as perfect and as beautiful as my brackets are. But this has been today's episode of Sean on Sports. I want to thank every single person for coming back after this hiatus, for tuning in, for listening. I want to thank KRUI here at the Iowa Memorial Union here at the University of Iowa for facilities here for allowing me to do this. We will be back next week. We will maybe be talking about NFL free agency, but I really think I just want to stick with the brackets, especially after I will be proven correct. I'm sure that Purdue is a fraudulent team and that Long Beach State is going to upset Arizona. I don't know. That's what I'm thinking about. That's what I'm looking at. But thank you all so very much for listening today. And if you missed today's episode, if you miss seeing us live, you can catch us out on YouTube, youtube.com//@ Sean on Sports, where you can find the replays of every single show from this past semester if you have missed it. So thank you all. Have a safe and wonderful rest of your Tuesday. We will see you all next week.